please welcome to the stage our next Clio Spotlight stage presenter, Chris Stock.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Keeping Court, simplifying court dates with Clio. This is a topic that I know is close to many of our hearts. As we know, going to court, the court process, is an integral part of the legal system. And the interactions during that process are rarely painless. Today, we're going to look at how Clio is making the process faster, easier, much less stressful, and that's going to be shown by how we connect forms, deadlines, and filing into a unified experience. So before I get started, I'd like to thank our unicorn, visionary, and innovation partners. Without our sponsors, events of this size are very hard to make happen, so we appreciate their support. Many of them are integration partners, and I encourage you to check them out in the exhibition hall if you haven't already. So the agenda for today, firstly, we're going to set the stage by looking at the challenge of the fragmented courts process. And then we'll look at 3 tools that Clio has designed to make these interactions easier. And by the way, for those of you that were here last year, you would have seen these 3 tools, but they would have looked very different. They were quite fragmented last year, and over the course of the year, we've spent a lot of time creating a unified set of products that allow for a much easier process. So anybody that was here last year, get ready to see something a bit different. And how they all work together to solve the problem. And then at the end, we've got a special announcement about Clio Files expansion, and we'll finish by taking a look at what's coming up, and also how you can get started right away. So first of all, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name's Chris Stock. I'm the VP of Legal Content and Migrations at Clio. My portfolio includes Clio Draft, Clio File, and Clio Rules. I've spent over 15 years working in legal technology and process optimization. And before that, I actually worked in real estate in Australia, also known as conveyancing. And my focus here at Clio is improving the tools that help legal professionals navigate the court processes more efficiently without sacrificing accuracy or compliance. And that also goes for transactional law as well. For anybody that does transactional law, we can apply some of these principles as well. So, let's start with the reality. Court processes are still highly fragmented. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about filing in California, for example. You might draft documents in one platform, track deadlines in a separate platform, and log into a separate court portal for each filing that you have to do. Each step requires different logins, rules, workflows, and each step is a chance for something to go wrong. I used to work at a government-owned agency in Victoria in Australia in the legal department. And one of the things that struck me, and one of the things we've been working on at Clio, is that the tools that we needed to run a simplified courts process were largely only available through purchasing highly customizable enterprise solution at massive costs associated with implementation and maintenance. At Clio, we're focused on helping legal practitioners get access to this sort of firepower without having to spending the costs that we used to have to incur 20 years ago when we were trying to simplify our processes in our practice. So the fragmentation has real consequences. Re-entering case details again and again for your documents, and then in your calendar, and then when you go to file. You have to manually track all this stuff. You chase confirmation receipts. It eats up hours that could be spent on client work. It increases the chance of missed dates or errors, adds unnecessary overhead, and ultimately impacts your ability to deliver a great client service. If you think about the risk that we take when we're doing things like copying and pasting out of one document into another document. When I used to do conveyancing, and before I implemented document automation software, I used to do that. I used to bring up an old template and I would copy and paste the details of one client into another. And I can't tell you the number of times something was sent to the wrong address with a different client's name. Now tie that back to something as serious as a social security number in a form that might need to be filed, and what impact that could have on your indemnity insurance premiums if you were to make a mistake. So thinking about all of that, what if all of those steps were connected? What if you could draft your documents with ease, file your documents immediately after drafting those documents, have the deadlines once those documents are filed automatically calculate for you, and then be entered into your calendar and then allow you to track the statuses. And then, once you move on to the next portion of the court process, this repeats and this automates for you. What if that was all connected? Or what if I told you that today it is? We've built Clio Draft, Clio File, and Clio Rules. A year ago, these were 3 products, 3 pieces of functionality that were available, but they were disparate. Today, we've spent the last year working on putting them together to form a concise and cohesive workflow, a single end-to-end court workflow where you can prepare everything in one place without ever leaving Clio, maintaining a single source of truth throughout the court's process. It's faster, it's more accurate, and it's less stressful. So, with Clio Draft, you can create forms in a minute. It all starts with the preparation. Every single court process starts with a document. Every single legal matter starts with a document. A lot of the time, that's your retainer. You can automate your retainer. Sometimes that's, let's say, if there's people watching in Australia today, it might be an originating motion for a case. It could be a complaint. Every single interaction starts with a document. So with Clio Draft, you can create single court forms or a full package of court forms in minutes by having the data pulled directly from your matter, no retyping, no searching for the right fields, just accurate forms that are ready for filing right away. Now, one of the cool things about Clio Draft now is we've recently released a functionality called questionnaires. These questionnaires mean the information that you're used to manually entering into your document automation software or into Manage can now be collected directly from your clients. The other thing about Draft is, whilst it's called Clio Draft, when we think about drafting documents in the traditional sense, I think of a 500-page operating agreement that's hours and hours of work. But drafting with Clio Draft isn't just that sort of work. A lot of legal practice is the same form being used over and over again, or the same document in our library with clauses that we like, that we've drafted, that we use over and over again. Clio Draft not only provides you with the library of those documents in your jurisdiction that you use over and over again. We have a library of 50,000 in the United States that are available to you with Draft. It also allows you to create your own. And we've also, as was announced yesterday, started having our AI teammates help you do this. In fact, you can see that at our product lab after this if you would like. It's now easier than ever to add your own content to Clio Draft. So I think that before I implemented document automation in my first job as a conveyancer, the average conveyancing file would take hours and hours. I was copy typing things. I was trying to find old documents on shared drives. And then what happened was one day I stumbled across document automation. And it changed my life. It meant that I was able to do in about an hour end-to-end an entire conveyance. Now, obviously, that was fragmented over a period of time as a process went through, but actual document creation and automation, I was able to get that down to an hour. And that was in 2008, without the technology that we have today. So imagine what you can now accomplish with a product like Draft, and a library of documents that allows you to practice outside of your comfort zone. If you're a corporate lawyer and you have a family friend come to you and say, hey, I've got an amicable, simple divorce, can you just file the documents for me? With Draft, you have access to be able to do something like that. Next, it's time to file. With Clio File, you can submit filings directly to the court and e-serve opposing counsel without ever leaving Clio. You'll see real-time status updates within Manage, where you're used to working, and it reduces the chance of rejections or errors. We actually give you messages. If we see something that a court may not accept, you'll see a message saying, hey, there's a special character in this, some courts might not accept that. So we help you along the way as well with our software. And you'll keep every step tied, again, to the matter where it belongs. As you can see there, you have a filing dashboard where you can keep track of everything as it's filed, as you receive responses from the court. And the other really cool thing is it actually captures the expense of the filing directly back to the matter. And if you think about the value of capturing that expense back to the matter, again, when I was doing conveyancing, we used to have a lot of expenses. We would do property searches. And I would have a tray, those old blue trays that you have in law firms or most businesses at that point in time, and it sat at the accounts department. And once I did a search, I'd put it in the accounts basket, and I'd walk off and forget about it. Then I'd bill the customer. A month later, we'd move the filing cabinet that was the tray was sitting on top of, and behind it was 6 bills that we'd forgotten to actually expense. And then you have that really difficult decision. Do I write off this $1,000? Or do I go back to my client and say, hey, sorry, I forgot to pass this cost on to you? With File, that's no longer a risk, because when you file directly through Clio Manage using our e-filing, that expense saves directly back to your matter in real time, so that when you bill your client, you automatically recover that expense. So finally, you need to keep track of every important date in the court process. Do I have anyone here from California today? So you know what I'm talking about. California has probably the most difficult calendaring process that I've seen anywhere in the world, where judges can set their own requirements. Now, we keep all of that up to date. Clio Rules automatically applies all the correct court rules, even if you're in California, even if you have a judge that may be constantly changing their requirements. It calculates the deadlines. It makes sure it knows what's a business day, what's a court holiday. It does all of that for you. And it syncs them straight into your Clio calendar and tasks. That means no guesswork, no manual calculations, and no last-minute surprises. Something that has been available for a long time for many of you. Our rule sets actually come as part of Clio Manage. In fact, depending on your plan, you have access to between 3 and 10 jurisdictions already. And over the last year, something that we haven't announced before, we've spent a lot of time on updating these rule sets to the point where we now have about 2,500 individual rule sets. In the last 12 months, 60 million individual dates were generated by Clio's rule sets. In addition to that, through our partners that use calendar rules for their back end, or Clio rules for its back end, we have 3 of the top 5 AM law firms using our rule sets, and 25% of the AM Law 100 firms using our rule sets. These are available to everybody who uses Clio. And if we are missing a rule set, 2,500 jurisdictions is a pretty big library, but things change. There's new jurisdictions at all times. We're open to listening. We want to hear from you. We're building the calendar rules team. It's an important part of the Clio story and the law firm story and the court story. So please, any feedback that you might have, we're very open to about what rule sets you might be looking for. So here we're going to have a quick look at the entire workflow, live as it is today in Clio Draft, File and Rules. We know this can be so much better, and in the next year, you'll start seeing our first examples of Quartz AI, automating even more of this. But last year, keep in mind, these were 3 separate functions within the broader managed product. Now we've brought them together into a cohesive Quartz product. Eventually, we'll also have deeper ties with Clio Work that was announced yesterday, and a docket alarm as part of the VLEX platform. So let's have a look. So here we're in Manage. As you're used to seeing, we go into a matter, we open our documents. Here, we open Draft, and we create our document. You'll see that we have an extensive library that's available to all of you that have Draft. And then what it will do is it will pull data through and enter it for you if you've entered it previously. If you haven't, what it will do is capture it, store it, and allow you to use it again later. If you're using the questionnaires component, the client would have provided you that data and you wouldn't have had to type it all yourself. You can see as we go through here, the document generates. We do things like e-sign it, but we're going to e-file it. All here, still within Manage, still within Clio Manage, the one system, the one platform, the one window. This here is the filing process. As we go through, we'll see that we can add our additional parties if we need to. And as we move through, you'll see that's the warning I was talking about, little things that can differ from court to court. Some courts allow certain things that others don't. Leave that to us. We make sure that your filings are going to get accepted. Here we go through and we can see a final summary of the filing that we're about to submit. Then we submit it, you'll see that we can move on to calendaring. This here is the calendaring, the court rules that are already available in Clio for you. You can see right now, we've selected our matter, it's an arbitration matter, it's in the California Superior Court, and automatically, as we go through and select the options, it will automatically generate the list of calendar items, the docketing that you need to remember, without you having to calculate anything yourselves. If any of these change, we keep them up to date for you. You don't have to go and count 14 business days, 14 calendar days. We do it for you. So what does the future look like? Here's where we're headed. A fully connected court process. Imagine opening a new matter within Manage, having your forms automatically populated, your deadlines calculated and synced, and your filings submitted. Your status updates are ready without lifting a finger. That's where Clio and AI are taking us. Think about the workflow right now. We create our document, Manage realizes, or Clio Work realizes you've created your document. It says you've created a document that needs to be filed. Do you want to file it? Your teammate says, let me file this for you, and it does. Your teammate then says, do you want us to docket this for you? Do you want it in your calendar? You say yes. When the next date arrives, that workflow continues again and says, you should now create this document. That's the court process that we're looking at in the future using Clio. So now I'm excited to announce that Clio File is now available in California. We're starting with Orange County. Within weeks, we will be in LA County, and all other counties will flow from there. That means we now cover Texas, Georgia, and California, with more states coming soon. If you're in one of those states, you can start e-filing directly from Clio today. And if not, stay tuned because we're expanding fast. We also have our product manager for courts in the room today, Brian Dingwall. Brian, if you'd like to stand up and say hello. Brian has an absolute passion for making the court's workflow as efficient and seamless as possible. He is here today to listen to any of your questions, any of your feedback that might help us bring you a better courts experience. So just to summarize, the connected workflow is now simple. Prepare with Clio Draft. Track with Calendar Rules or Clio Rules. And file with Clio File. Each tool is powerful on their own, but now that we've put them together, they can now completely change the way you manage your court work. So get started today. If you're ready to start saving time, reducing stress on your court work, you can try it out. You can swing by the Clio Draft, Calendar Rules, Clio File product area over in the product lab. You can book a one-on-one with a product expert. The sooner you connect your workflows, the sooner you start getting those hours back for what matters most, your clients. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you for coming to ClioCon 2025. Hope to see you next year or in the product lab. Have a great weekend.